Zoom app, so I haven't used it in browser mode. I'm not sure if there's a difference there. I do have them. So if you want me to share them and then.
Yeah, I'll do my best to kind of, I don't know why I'm struggling with this.
Let me try. I think there's a way I can give you like mouse control for what I have up.
Ooh.
Let's see. So if we go up here. All right, you want to try moving it around?
Is this me or you?
I think that's you.
Awesome. So like I can point to stuff.
Yep, I see it.
All right, perfect. Just so you're not guessing if I'm like talking about something specific, but.
Gotcha. Okay, so when we get there, I'll make sure you have this control.
Thank you, Devin. You're the best.
No problem. Okay, I'm going to stop it for now.
Okay. Just going to give it one more minute for everybody to join.
Are you on, Sam?
Okay, we're going to go ahead and call to order at 6:31. First order of business is Pledge of Allegiance. Panelists could unmute. Right. I
Pledge allegiance
To the flag
to the flag of the United States
of America,
and
and
to the republic
republic
for which it
which
stands,
stands
one
nation,
nation, under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty
and
and
justice
justice
for
for
all.
all.
Thank you very much, everybody. At this time, I would like to open the floor for public comment. So as with all our previous meetings, if you would like to provide public comment, the procedures are on the screen, but please raise your hand and Devin will allow you to speak. And then you can go ahead and unmute yourself and provide comment at that point. So I'll open that up to public comment now. Okay. All right, I didn't see anybody. Devin, did I miss anybody?
Nope.
Okay, all right, great. Thank you very much. Next order of business is minutes. So could I have a motion to approve the attached March 24th, 2021 minutes?
Hi, this is Sharon. I'll make a motion to approve the March 24th, 2021 minutes.
This is Wendy. I'll second.
Excellent. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, unanimously approved. Next, item E is correspondence received between the dates of 3/22/21 and 4/5/2021. They are included in the agenda packet. So we received multiple questions via the website, and responses are included as appropriate in the packet as well. Again, we appreciate the continued engagement from the community. And as always, I will say, please access the website and use that page at the very bottom to communicate with the building committee. That is questions, comments, anything you'd like to share with us. Again, we also have opportunities at many of our upcoming meetings as well to ask questions during specific topic meetings as well as neighborhood meetings, but the forum is always available to you. So please feel free to use that if you do not have the opportunity to provide public comment in a meeting. So lots of options to get to us and ask questions. So we appreciate that. We're going to go in right into item F, reports. As for chair report, I think I am going to abstain for tonight. We have a lot of information to cover on communications and other items. The only thing I would like to say is thank you again to building committee members, to the community, to everybody who's put a lot of effort into the community presentations that have been really going very, very well. We continue to encourage community members to listen and learn. We just a quick plug for the website, please. By all means, go out, take a look at the website, any opportunity that you can to do so. Lots of information out there. The side-by-side video is posted out there for viewing. There is a page as well, which is fantastic, with all the meeting resources available to you. So if you happen to miss a meeting and want to go back and listen to the recording, that is available to you, as well as what content was shared at the meeting. So you'll start to see some of that communication go out via social media and using our platforms. But also, I just wanted to take an opportunity for people to know that those resources are there. And the website is ever changing, and we add more information almost daily. So please take the opportunity to go out there and take a look and take a look at the resources and share that information with other community members. And our goal is to get that information out to as many people as possible. So and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in communications as well, but just kind of another reminder of the importance of that and the resources that are available to everybody. Next order of business is town council liaison report. So I'll ask Chris.
Yep. Thank you, Meg. We're sort of came out of the other end of the tunnel for us in terms of our budget, process and considerations, which has consumed much of our time. On Monday, we had the first, the public hearing on our budget, and that's going to go forward. Relative to the building committee, Brian Connolly and I were working with the finance director, Joe Swecki, with regard to exploring the, tax benefit programs and abatement and programs, and we presented out on Monday night, and that's going to be coming up for full consideration, you know, as a future item before the council. So that is moving forward, which will help, you know, hopefully ease some concerns for some of our citizens as they consider the project. So that's moving forward, and we'll be considering that at the council level shortly. That's about it.
Great, thank you, Chris. Any questions for Chris from the committee? All right, great, thank you. Next item is communications subcommittee report. I'm going to ask Kat to give us an update.
So the communications subcommittee just met at 5:30 tonight. We reviewed our website analytics to see where a lot of the traffic was coming from, and we did notice some spikes each time the newsletter went out, which is great, that people are directly going to the website and looking at the content that we have on there. We reviewed the website updates like Meg just spoke about. The side-by-side video is on the homepage front and center. That's something that we are showing at a lot of our community outreach meetings because it does a great job showing the current facility and what is proposed in the new high school. We also have that really important community outreach page. We are pushing people to see the calendar and try to attend as many events as possible to, you know, get all the information that they need. But it is great that we have one place with all the information for recorded meetings if they happen to miss one or go back or had, you know, a specific interest in one of the topics. We spoke a little bit about how our social media is going to supplement that marketing effort and driving people back to the website, you know, reaching out to people saying, hey, did you miss this meeting? Here's a link to everything. We are streaming all of our meetings, like we are live on Facebook right now. So that enables another audience to be able to see and participate and engage and stay up to date on what's been going on. And then lastly, we're kind of taking a look at the community outreach efforts that we have going on. We had a number of meetings last week. We've created a number of different presentations, kind of adapted the format to the audience. So everything has been running very smoothly and echoing what Meg said, thank you to everybody that has been presenting and there for statements. They've run very smoothly and we've been getting some great feedback. So if any other members of the subcommittee has anything to add, I think that's all I have for the report.
Any questions for Kat or anything in addition that committee members want to add to the update?
Meg, it's Michael. I don't know as much as a question as maybe an opportunity. First of all, I want to echo exactly what everybody said. The format of how you've organized this and the way you've offered it is outstanding. The one piece that I think there may be an opportunity, I don't know if it's through the subcommittee, just to consider how we can perhaps link on to ways in which maybe somebody who doesn't have a student in the schools is connecting more normally to sort of these Zoom formats and then sort of link onto that or through those forums that may be happening through the town in any way to the older adults who may not have, again, somebody in the school system, just to connect with them. I think that it's challenging in not being able to go physically to connect to a group that has not maybe exercised and used Zoom as much as everybody else who may be having a student in school or presently working.
Yeah, I think it's a good point, Michael. I'm going to clarify something too that I think is important as well. And then I'm going to have Kat talk a little bit more about senior outreach, some efforts that we're going to do around that. But to your point, I think one thing we need to be really clear on, and I've gotten this question a couple times too, and we went back and forth on the best way to name our neighborhood meetings. And the neighborhood meetings have the school names in them, but they are not directed towards people only with school-age children. So I want to be really clear on this. First of all, just so everybody knows, the content is pretty much the same at all of those neighborhood meetings. So going to one is going to get you the benefit of going to another. So really, when you're looking at those neighborhood meetings, and I'm saying those are different than the topic meetings, is going to get you the information you need. So pick the one that meets your schedule, that best meets your needs. and understand that it's really providing all the information you need to know about the project. And we've just centered it around the elementary schools because those are the 4 kind of cornerstones within the community that can help us direct community engagement. So that's something I think that we needed to clarify a little bit. I'm going to talk to, hopefully the newsletters too are helping. There's going to be another newsletter that's going to come out. So if you don't want to kind of grasp onto that technology piece, and if there's sometimes it's helpful. I sometimes I'm the same way, to have that piece of paper in your hand, be able to review it and look at it. I get that completely. So there is another newsletter coming out. There'll be additional newsletters in support of information, both the district and the town newsletter as well. So you're going to get a lot of information in the mailbox. But our final newsletter, our 3rd newsletter, will go out prior to May 11th, and we'll have really a roadmap of the school. Will be very visual, very easy to understand. So we're hoping that helps people as well stay engaged. But Kat, if you could talk a little bit more about, we talked actually about some of the senior outreach, which is kind of another aspect of communication, and I think how we can support that as well.
Absolutely. And just before I jump into that, the town newsletter, the latest version is at the printer right now. And the building committee update is right on the front page, echoing what was in our last newsletter, and trying to encourage people to attend these events, let them know they're happening, and drive people to the website. So, I mean, not everything is being done just, electronically or online, trying to get as much information into the hands of as many residents as possible. In terms of the senior, we are partnering with the Senior Center, and they are going to help us with a lot of outreach for our next senior meeting, which is in a couple weeks on, I believe, April 23rd in the afternoon. They have volunteers that are there that will help us make phone calls and reach out to their individual contacts at senior housing around town, and really trying to make a big push to get more involvement from that demographic. I think one thing that's important for them too is, you mentioned, Zoom isn't for everyone. So we are, again, offering the opportunity for people to go watch that live, kind of socially distanced at the Senior Center, because not everybody can navigate Zoom. And it really, it's not just for seniors. Again, like what Meg said, if people want to attend that meeting because it works with their schedule, by all means. I think the more we're replicating our marketing efforts and the message, it doesn't really matter which one you attend. But we think it's important to give people the opportunity to be able to come in person if they can't do it electronically. So we'll be making a big push for that.
Great, thank you.
And I do know, Michael, too, we've had conversations about, what does, in-person look like? When is it possible? I don't think we have answers on that yet. I think there's a lot of conversation around that. I think all of us would love to be able to make that connection and be able to provide, the community that opportunity. So I don't want people to think it's not being discussed or not being considered. It's just, as we all know, there's a lot of concerns around that, and just making sure, if it's possible for us to move in that direction, that we do it as safely as possible. So again, I wish I had an answer on that one, because I think that would be helpful for people too, is to be able to have an in-person option. And in normal circumstances, that is exactly what we would be doing. Although I think the electronic version allows us a lot of flexibility, and we can, just the sheer volume of meetings we can do electronically is great. I think we can all say clearly that we kind of miss that personal interaction, and so it is in discussion under conversation.
You come up with nice ways to adapt around it, no doubt.
Yeah.
And I appreciate some of the things that you're even working on right now based upon this first go around of presentations. So
yeah, it's learning and adjusting.
I think the recordings are also really helpful that are on the website. So maybe being able to direct people to that area of the website, and maybe even being able to submit questions right there since they've landed on that page might be helpful as well.
And maybe, Kev, that is something we can talk about is, even if there's an opportunity for in a location, a safe location with distancing, that they can just launch a meeting at any time.
Yeah,
know,
I
something like that.
definitely think that that's something that we can explore the logistics of.
Yeah.
Maybe we replicate what's going on at the senior center and utilize that space or a gym or, something, and at least have that ability to attend it in person. Obviously, it has to be a large facility to accommodate people and socially distance and all of that. But I think affording people that opportunity to attend in person is well worth it.
Yeah. So we'll continue those conversations and try to get the best solution that makes sense, I think, based on a lot of different circumstances. So, but thank you, Michael. I think that's a good point to talk about is, how best do we adapt and accommodate? So any other thoughts or questions on communications? Questions? All right, great. Thank you, Kat. Next up is Board of Education Liaison Report. I know Beth unfortunately cannot be with us tonight, but I don't know, Ellen, if there's anything that you'd like
I
to
really have
provide?
nothing to report tonight.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, I know you guys have been working hard as well. A lot going on. So next item is financial report. So Kat.
Just find my papers here. So the only changes in the financial report from last time, we have the postage from the March newsletter, which is added in the expense category. That was $1,925.06. And again, that's postage to get that to every resident in town. And then we have an invoice on today's agenda to approve for CSG. That is incorporated. And again, that's just moved from the amount billed to date column and then the remaining balance column is updated. So that leaves us with a total on hand of $133,388.86.
Great, thank you, Kat. Any questions on the financial report? Okay. State legislative and industry. I'm actually going to combine those two together, see if Mark or Chris have anything to share with us, any changes, updates.
No real updates, status quo right now, I think, unless Chris has something to add on the state legislative side. Industry update, things are, it's still a buyer's market. We do, I think Johnny would agree that the pricing for some of the materials, building materials are going way up, at least on the lumber side. I know in some cases, 100 to 200% increase in some of those costs of plywood and things like that. But I think, other than that, it's been pretty much status quo. I think availability of items that we would be looking at have been more readily available, but we have started to see a price creep a little bit in some of those materials.
Any questions for Mark? All right, great. That concludes reports for this evening. So we're going to move on to new business. First item is G1, and that is to approve the attached invoice from CSG in the amount of $31,707. I don't know, Devin, if you can pull that up real quick. This Kat just did mention this as well. We've given Devin a lot of documents to scroll through this evening, unfortunately.
Bear with me for a sec.
No, there it is. There it is.
There we go.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Just for reference, so if I could get a motion to approve the attached invoice from CSG in the amount of $31,707.
So line motion.
Yeah. All right, so I think we got a motion and a second in there. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? All right, unanimously approved. Okay, so we're going to move on to the last item on the agenda for this evening. And this is, I think, a conversation. First of all, I want to state that I am certainly by no means an expert in this subject. We have experts that we have access to that I think really are our next step in the process. But we've had a lot of conversation last time, a lot of questions around kind of elections enforcement compliance, what that means, and what it looks like as far as impacts to the committee and communications. So prior to this meeting and included in the meeting minutes, there's some great documentation that, if you guys remember way back, it was actually our second building committee meeting, believe it or not. We did have the town lawyer come in and speak to us about elections enforcement. He gave us some great documents. One of those being the document that you see up on the screen in front of you, and these were also forwarded onto the building committee for review. What I wanted to do tonight is just kind of do a quick overview of one of these documents, talk about that a little bit. This really kind of answers some of the questions that we've had come up. What I really want to hear from the community tonight is what specific questions do you have or are you hearing that we need to document and make sure we get answers to? So this is really more of a preliminary conversation. First of all, to make sure everybody's clear on some of the key points of this conversation as far as what warning looks like, when will it start, what is the impact of that? So some very high level conversation about the process, but then I'm hoping we kind of have a dialogue as a group here on what are we hearing, what conversations do we need to continue to have, and what kind of questions do we really need solid answers to make sure that we're prepared for May 11th. Does that make sense to everybody? At least to start the conversation. So again, I can tell you right up front, we're not going to have all the answers tonight, but I think if we gather our thoughts, we're going to be better prepared to use the resources we have available to us to answer those questions. That was my thinking tonight. So the document that you see up here is, and we'll see if this works, Devin. Do I have access yet?
Yes, you should.
Okay. Let's see if I can scroll. So bear with me as I have my advanced technology here that Devin's presenting, but I'm actually have control. So the document that you see here is actually one portion of a larger guideline that was distributed by election enforcement. I actually did have a conversation with elections enforcement this morning about this portion of the document specifically, which is use of public funds, which is exactly what is important to us as a committee. So this is a really plain speaking document. I think it's really important for us to understand what's in here and distribute this as well, I think, to the community so that they can understand it. So this whole conversation is coming up because people start talking about what we term as a blackout period or a quiet period. And so what that means is that there are restrictions, and this very first statement says it, on public funds may not be used to influence anyone to vote for or against pending referendum questions. And that's under penalty of a fine of $1,000, maybe even more potentially, so I've heard, to an individual involved in any kind of dispute around this information. But the important piece to this is that this restriction occurs once the referendum goes into warning. And we've talked about this a bunch of times. I'm not going to go into, and it's in the document, but I think what does that mean? The bottom line is, for us, that means May 11th. Right now, as far as our schedule is concerned, town council will actually hopefully go ahead and move this to referendum on May 11th. So from now until May 11th, there are no restrictions. There's no impact. This has nothing to do with us. So as far as having this conversation, it really doesn't impact us at all. What this is really having a conversation on is after May 11th, once we've gone into that warning period or blackout or quiet period. And it really has to do with these public funds for communication during that time frame. Does that make sense to everybody? That there really is a distinction. So I don't want us to, that's why we're having these conversations now, is to get us prepared, but this does not go into effect now. And that's usually a point of confusion for people on what's going on. So this document really kind of goes through what's included. So what types of activities are prohibited. So any expenditure of public funds to advocate a result or influence any person to vote for or against the referendum is prohibited once the referendum is pending. So it's advocacy of the vote. That is what is of concern for us. This includes the dissemination of printed materials, preparation video or website presentations, supplies, equipment, postal permits, anything in any form used to advocate a position on the referendum. So right here is the question that comes up every time of what happens to the website. It cannot have information post May 11th that is considered advocacy on it. It does mean that we can, and this document goes and talks about, what's considered advocacy as well as what is not. We can have factual information still on our website, but that distinction is left up to our town lawyer in order to make that distinction. So we still have some work to do around that, but just be clear that this really talks about what is prohibited post May 11th. This is an interesting comment as well. Parent-teacher organizations, school administrators, municipal offices, and employees or any other person may not use school or town equipment to prepare or copy advocacy materials. So it specifically states PTOs. This is a conversation that comes up quite a bit, a question that we have, and PTOs fall under the municipal umbrella for the town of Farmington. So that is a limitation that will go into effect post May 11th. I'm going to stop here, see if anybody has any questions, comments, thoughts around this.
Meg, Chris, I think this is Chris. I think, some of the confusion the first time around was not so much the expenditure of public funds, but even what you touched on was advocacy. And,
Right.
we were, if I had to make a, public statement last time as the board chair, I was scrubbing all my comments, but, from the very down to the minutia of permissive versus, affirmative words. I mean, it was really tricky. So, not so much the public funds, but even just our public comments were very confusing. I mean, I think the first time around.
Yeah, and I think that's really is a point of confusion for us. So everything, and this is, I think, the question that we need to ask. So as long as it's this really, all these restrictions, as far as I can see, are around public funds, how public funds are used. So I think that's the question we have to ask is, can you, what statement can you say? What words can you use post May 11th? And as long as you're an independent, if you're a person acting as a resident of Farmington, you should be able to say those things. But I think we need more clarification, right? Chris, is what you're saying is exactly what.
Yeah, exactly. It was almost on the, not so much the funding issue as much as just what is, and you're always walking a delicate line as an official, and then a member of the building committee, and then also just making statements. What chat am I talking in? Or, if you're posting to Facebook, social media, it's like, where am I drawing? Am I walking this razor line of, offending these things? And I think it wasn't the first time around was a little bit confusing as to where we could go with, our speech, and our speech was very problematic. I mean, in terms of, wait a minute, I think if I use this word, it's not the correct word. It's too affirmative. It's not passive enough. And so we really need help here, I think.
Yeah, Kathy's got her hand up.
I think what the issue is that what you need clarity on is that our charter is different from most, and it's not really addressed in here because it's different, is that we have an annual town meeting between the time that we send it to a referendum and you vote. And most people don't have a town meeting during the blackout period. And that's when it got very confusing, because in Farmington, we've always treated the annual any town meeting, the annual one or budget ones, more as a public hearing. And we've been told that you're not supposed to use funds. You're not supposed to do like Chris was saying. So last year, for the first time, they were saying, listen, you're not supposed to be doing this in your town meetings. You're in a blackout period. And so I think the question is, it's very clear from when it sends to referendum in May to when you go for a vote. You'd say, I think it's clear here what you can and cannot do. It's really a question about what you can do at this town meeting. And again, that's where we were, if Kathy Greeter and I, going through our speeches with Chris and talking, and I think that's really the crux of what we need clarity on. A lot of this is very clear. It's that you're really supposed to, as it states, is it's a blackout period, and you can speak as an individual and knock on doors, but you really can't be using town funds, town staff, and everything else to start supporting the project. So I don't know if that helps at all, but that's how I would read where we need some clarity.
Yeah, because, like Kathy said, I mean, it was at that town meeting, I can remember like scratching, should this, that, all these little words out of what I was going to present, because it was very confusing. Yeah.
It's supposed to be treated as like what we call as an explanatory text, and an explanatory text is supposed to just have the dollars, the numbers, very basic things, the size of the school. And we were told at the annual town meeting, you couldn't even say that we had an exceptional school system, because that verbiage is considered swaying people. And like when we have our lawyers review things during, like right now, we're in a blackout period for the budget. So like for us, we just sent it to the budget that's going for a budget referendum. We have an annual town meeting in between that. We are supposed to really just be showing like one slide, because you're not supposed to have you're not supposed to have a town meeting during the blackout period. And that's just old language that we've had for the last 20 years. So I think that we really just need to have clarity about what we need to do at that meeting. I think definitely more clarity.
Yeah, Michael, go ahead.
I have a question about, to clarify with the website, and I can't recall, did materials that were on the building committee's website, did they disappear last time? And do we feel comfortable with the materials that we have now, that they are explanatory? If we have statement of need, we have diagrams of the building and how we're addressing those statements of need. Has anybody sort of taken a look at the website to determine if there's content on there that, based upon this guidance, would have to be edited? Or do we feel comfortable that what we've got on the website can remain through the entire, the way that it's scripted there now?
Meg, I can jump in on this one.
Yep.
Our website will be reviewed by the town attorney to see what is considered advocacy and what is acceptable while we're in the blackout period. The last time we did the high school project, the same thing happened, and information was taken down because it was, it was determined to be advocacy. But like Kathy said, the explanatory text information, the schematics of the building, the cost, that all stayed because that is permissible under the law. So everything, we are in the works with our town attorney to have him review in detail the website and make sure that we are in compliance.
So as a follow-up, if the attorney should suggest that there are paragraphs of text that need to come out, is it that we just remove them, or will someone on our committee potentially edit them so that we continue to remain factual and consistent with this explanatory text, rather than potentially just taking whole sections out because something may contain something that needs to be added? So I'm just asking the question is, as an attorney advises to say this, I have concern with this, do we strike it, or do we potentially go back and re-edit it?
I think we take into consideration what they said and work with them to make sure we can, keep as much as possible on the website. I think things like some videos are difficult because they can be construed as advocacy, and they might just say, take down the whole video.
So something like being able to say, this particular aspect of the project addresses the statement of needs. Would that potentially be construed as, is that explanatory, or is that persuading someone to say, hey, check the box, we did this? I mean, that I think is some of the stuff that I'm curious about, as to whether or not, you can list the statement of needs and you can list sort of what the school looks like. Can you say this accomplishes what the statement of needs are addressing? And I don't want to put you on the spot, but those are the kinds of things.
I'm
Sooner
not an
sooner rather
attorney.
than later, it might be helpful just to scrub that website to make certain that we're kind of conforming to this explanatory text even at this point in time.
Right. I mean, I think the hardest thing is the blackout period and right before the referendum is when people are looking for the most information. So that's why I think the explanatory text exists, because it provides the basic neutral facts of the project and allows people to get information, but you're not using the public funds to advocate and really slant it one way. So, I mean, every little detail we will have the attorney review, and I think when there's a question, we go back and forth and try to see, you know, what the best way to proceed is. But you know, our website will be available, and we will leave what we're able to leave up.
I think we've got Ellen.
Just a couple of things to Michael's point. That's why, Michael, I think our advocacy groups have also said that much of this information will be transferred to the advocacy groups from our website. So we won't be completely lost to our community that they shift their attention. But anyway, Kathy, I just had a question because I just want to clarify when you're talking about the annual meeting. So I know we have an annual meeting for budget. So I don't know when you set the date. But were you talking about an annual town meeting before budget this year, or do we do an annual town meeting before? Will there be one scheduled before the June 3rd referendum?
Yeah, we have the annual town meeting. The council just sent it on Tuesday night. And Kat, do you have the date? I don't have it in front of me. I think the annual town meeting is on Monday, April 23rd.
I think it's 29th.
29th.
That's before our May 11th blackout.
Yeah, so that's the budget annual town meeting.
Yeah.
So we're going to have the town meeting there. And Kathy Greeter and I have been talking again, because we didn't have one last year because of the COVID restrictions, is that we really need to have a much different format for the annual town meeting for the budget, just because of this, because you're really in the blackout period for that too.
So we're in the blackout period for budget, but we're not in the blackout period for the high school project.
Correct.
So
Correct.
you're working on how do we balance this? Okay, I get it. So there's not an annual town meeting before the June 3rd referendum.
There is, Ellen. There's our charter. Anytime we have a referendum, we have to hold a town meeting exactly 10 days before. So there is going to be a town meeting specific to this referendum, the high school referendum, 10 days before the referendum.
So you're saying because we're in a blackout period for budget, that it might kind of skew into the blackout for the building project?
No. I think they're totally separate. It's just that we're having the same sort of topic discussion now that we're in the budget blackout period. And then, but we're not in the high school blackout period. That's not until after May 11th.
Right. Okay.
It's Ellen, it's the overall issue that regardless of its budget or the high school referendum, it's difficult to even hold a town meeting in the middle of that when you can't, you can only use explanatory text and you can't advocate. So it's just, it's in the charter. So it just makes it difficult.
We just have very old language, and it's just that needs to eventually be changed, but it's just, it's not addressed in some of this stuff because it's very unusual that you have that during a blackout period.
What's the format for the town meeting building committee? The prior to the bill, is it basic, like what we would say the explanatory text, and it would be open for public comment? Is that the normal process?
How we typically had done it up till last time that we did it is that we treated it more like a public hearing. So you give a presentation, you do all sorts of stuff, and then people would then ask questions and you answer the questions. But really, that's not what we've been told, is that you really should be just going, here's the money, here's what the building looks like, and that's it. And so that's what we're going to have to work on, I think, with the lawyers, twofold. I think Michael's questions are good about the website, how much we have to change that, and then the town meeting for the high school project. What is the process there?
Kathy, can I ask a question? Would the attorney advise that the timing of the meeting should shift, or that the meeting should just not be held at all?
See, that's what the attorney has said, is that it's unusual to have that type of a meeting during the blackout period. Our charter has it in, and so you can't really change it. So you just have to follow explanatory text rules for an annual town meeting, which is just odd. Most places, after it gets sent, you go into a blackout period and you're like just basically quiet. How our charter is set up, we have this meeting in between it. And you really shouldn't have that meeting, but it's by charter, so you can't not have it. So you have to just follow the rules of what I'm calling a blackout period and explanatory text, where you're just giving the basic information and then having people ask questions about it. And it really came to light last time because as our attorneys looked at it and were like, you can't be saying all this stuff. You should just be saying, here's the price, here's what the building looks like, and then open it up to questions. So we just have to make sure, I don't think we can't not have the meeting because it's part of our charter. We just have to have it as just a bare bones meeting and just have it like that.
And
Kathy,
as the attorney opined as to whether or not you could still satisfy that you've had the meeting, as long as could you have it before the 11th of, I suppose you can't have could you have an explanatory meeting about the program before the referendum date set?
Yeah, and that would be at the council level, and that would be a public hearing. And that would be a regular public hearing, which you'd have, which is fine.
Nobody's
It's
got a
just really once the council sends it out.
Okay, so it's an additional meeting. We'll handle it that way and say what you can say.
And the tough part, Nicole, is the charter is very specific about the amount of days you have to have it before the referendum. So there's really no wiggle room with that. It's exactly 10 days.
Kathy and Kat, do you mail out like vote to question? In Glastonbury, they send one to every household, which is very specific. Here's the money, here's what we anticipate to be spent on. So it's a very, very objective thing. So it sounds like your 10-day prior meeting is vote to question. So it's very, very specific. Have you ever, or is that within the budgets or the time frame? I know it works pretty well here in Glastonbury, as long as it's very specific.
Right, and we've done that's what we just did for our budgets, like the explanatory text. And that's what I think we'll have to do for this too, something very specific.
Could that supplement the meeting? Or I know you can't change the meeting, but can you do both?
Yeah, we could do both.
Okay, something to consider, because it's the language I've seen when I'm doing these over here. It's like vote to question, and the question is very specific.
Right.
In terms of doing that, the issue is what happens is that if people are saving the website URLs or certain pages or the video, and when the minute it goes quiet and then go click those things, they're not going to show up. They're going to show error margins. And once the attorney decides you can't have this up and that, so the preparation prior to that gets very important. And these handoffs cannot be structurally put in. In other words, whatever group out there wants to do it, whatever they can capture, it becomes First Amendment freedom of information, but you cannot assist them at that point of taking whatever on the website that's going to come down. In other words, whatever groups are out there, in fact, you can't even coach them now to do it. That they can take what they want, that information, repurpose it, and you put it on their own website. And basically those groups can do whatever they want with it. But we can't, you can't coordinate with them, any of this stuff. And that's where it gets very specific, because then the town funds are being used this way, stuff like that. That's just been my experience of doing these things, these transitions. And so, the thing that's let people know, which we can do in the last newsletter or whatever presentation we do, is say, on this date, if you try to go to our website, there might be information you cannot get. You'll have to get it from other sources. Or take the information we have here and, cut and paste it, whatever you want to do as a town, resident. And so you can let them know that, so it goes up to, what happened to you guys? Where'd you go? All the social media, everything kind of disappears. And I just think we should just consider those transitions are really important.
All right, so I'm hearing a couple things. So we obviously need more clarification on exactly what's happening in that town meeting. As Kathy, like, what does it look like? What can we say? What is the structure of it? The town meeting specific to the building referendum. Obviously, we need a full website review. And making sure that, and in the document that, I'm not going to go through it, but in the document that I have up really talks about advocacy and what that looks like. It's kind of one of those things that I think, there's if for some reason a complaint is made, it is up to the commission to determine based on the definition around what advocacy looks like. They do their best to define it, but we will certainly take the direction of the town lawyer, as we've heard tonight, to help us make that determination on whatever content we've created to date. I know I have questions, and this comes down to some very specific things. Like, we're post May 11th. I have I'm the building committee chair. I remain in that position, obviously post May 11th until our job is done. But it's post May 11th, and I want to get out to my email distribution list and say, hey, just want to let you know the referendum's coming up in June. Here's everything you need to know. Here's some highlights and some key points. I think people still have confusion around, can I do that? Like, does everybody else feel this same way? Like, I'm not sure like where that line is. And I think that's a very specific question we have to ask and say, yeah, if you're using your own resources and I'm using my own distribution list and my own email that has nothing to do with the town or anything else, it makes sense to me that I should be able to communicate to my own distribution list with that information. But I think I've heard that question from people. I've heard comments. So I think, those are the kind of questions and specific things that when we do have a resource available to us, that we ask those things, because I don't want people to be hesitant in providing information when we have the opportunity to do so. So I don't want people to think May 11th, I can't talk about this at all to anybody. We can't have the conversation. I can't bring it up. I don't want anybody to even look at me until the referendum's done. It's kind of the feeling you get, I think. So I think we need more clarification around that. Does everybody else kind of think that, or anybody else feel the same way about this?
I think it's helpful to get that clarification.
Hey, Meg, this is Wendy. I was actually thinking while you were talking too, what about social media sites, websites like Facebook and Twitter? And I think we had Instagram. Like, where do we stand on that? Is that something that we can still keep up, or do we have to take down our live recordings and videos?
Yeah, I think it follows, since Kat, you can jump in, but it's considered a town resource. So, but Kat, go ahead.
And that's something, Wendy, that we will have the attorney take a look at too. I know the last time, I believe we just unpublished like our Facebook page. I do try in my posts to be very deliberate about the language. So it's just like meeting tonight or, this. So it's never really construed in any advocacy way. So I do try to remain very fast, like meeting tonight, see you tomorrow at noon, something like that. So again, that will be reviewed by the attorney.
Any other thoughts, questions other people have received around this, or anything they're thinking or wondering about that we need to make sure that we document?
Are we continuing to meet as a committee between the 11th and the vote?
Yeah, we actually just talked about this today, Michael. So we will, at our next meeting, you will see an agenda item for a revision of our meeting schedule. So post May 11th, you will see those meetings drop off the calendar. But once the referendum passes, we will obviously continue and resume with our duties after June 3rd. So
And that
although
goes
we
for subcommittees as well.
subcommittees as well, correct. Yeah, so this is, I know this is like a detailed conversation. There's a lot of kind of intricacies to what we're talking about, but I also think it's important for the community to kind of understand some of these logistics as well. Make sure people hear about the fact that something is going to happen May 11th around communications and understand why that is the case. So we need to continue doing a better job too, to make sure that the community understands that and what that means and what it's going to look like too. So although I think we have a lot of questions, I think helping the community understand this process too is an important part of this. Ellen, do you still have a question? Or are you? Okay, go ahead.
I was after Kathy Blonsky.
Oh, I didn't even see her hand. Sorry. Go ahead, Kathy.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute. I just wanted to make sure that, again, like what I think Wendy was saying is that, and we'll definitely get clarity, but I think just overall that during that blackout period, like you said, the committee is supposed to, it's really, your work at the official level is done as much as, at that time. And I think everyone's but that doesn't mean, like Kat was talking about the town Facebook page. As an individual, you can still have your social media and do everything like that. And I think that's where it's blurred. It's really just your official work is done. But as an individual, you can do Facebook, you can do everything, you can support it, you can, and I think, Meg, I'm sure we can get it clarity. If you're doing your own email with your own contact list and you are sending things out as a person, I'm almost positive you can do that. It's really just as a group for that short period of time. And I think in concept, it's really that at that point in time, you've turned it over to the interest group, and the interest group, and you can be participating with them as an individual, is really just out there selling it. It's just you're not selling it as officials anymore. You're not selling the project as officials anymore. And that's why the building committee doesn't meet. That's why you shouldn't have meetings. It's just really now, your job is done. And now it's just people need to go out and vote. And this is the time that they're going out to vote. And I think, we can get definitely a list of questions about it. And the web pages should be very simple, because that's common. All towns go through it. All towns have the web page. And so they should know exactly what we can keep and what we can't keep.
Great, thanks, Kathy. Ellen?
I don't want to start another whole thing, but I know we've talked a lot about inside the building, but I think when we come back, Meg, if you go to elections enforcement, I think it would be super helpful to find out what the guidelines are for school facilities, meaning outside. What are the guidelines? Because I think this came up the other night at the PTO group. A question was, can we, and it has to do with mobilizing parents on the day, really on June 3rd, mobilizing visibility and what they're allowed to do. Obviously, they can't sit on the front steps of Union School and pass out flyers, but how far can they stand? So I think from elections enforcement, they'll probably have the updated guidelines on, is it the 75 feet, like a normal referendum or whatever, but I think that information would be helpful, especially if we get together again with our parent leader groups.
Okay, I've got that one written down too, Ellen.
Meg, I think it would be helpful just to get a little language for the committee members. I am communicating as an individual resident. You know what I mean? Just like a sentence starter from elections enforcement, so that everyone feels comfortable during that time to speak as a resident and not a member of the building committee. So sometimes just those frames, those sentence frames really are helpful for everyone. And elections enforcement, I've worked with them before. They're really excellent at looking at documents and giving their opinion on whether they are factual or not. And they will do that for us. So they're very, very helpful.
Like a disclaimer.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, even in this document they have here, they, at some point they say in there that, this does not constitute an endorsement by or represent the official position of the municipality. Like, even if it's something, like if we specifically go back to them and say, look, if we preface communication post May 11th with this statement, does that work? Like something like that, right, Kathy? Okay.
Exactly. I think it just would be helpful for everyone.
Yeah. Any other thoughts or conversations? As I said, I knew we wouldn't have all the answers, but I think we needed to have the conversation and think about it a little bit more. The other thing too is if, we do have an opportunity to have somebody come in and speak with us, I think we're better. We should be, having this conversation, we're better prepared, thinking it through, talking it through. So, we'll see what our options are there to answer any additional questions. But as Kathy mentioned too, elections enforcement is really fantastic. They were, I was leaving voicemails, they were returning phone calls several times, playing phone tag, but wanted to get to us, wanted to make sure we understood and had the resources we needed. So we've got a great resource there. It sounds like we're going to make some contact with the town lawyer to help us out with some of this too. But, if you think of other things or very specific scenarios that you're presented with, that you're questioning, send them our way too. You can send them right to me. And let's ask directly and just say, look, this is the situation I'm in. How do we proceed and what's the best course of action? As specific as we can be, I think is the best way to do that. So any other thoughts or final conversation on this, at least for right now? Excellent. So yeah, take some time if you haven't to review the documentation that was sent out. To those with us and joining us and listening to us tonight, these documents will be included as well in the meeting minutes that are going to go out. So again, a great resource just to learn more about this process and just kind of understand this conversation, what the impacts are to the project. But that's kind of, I just wanted to have some preliminary conversation on it just to get us started on this. Any other questions or thoughts anybody wants to share tonight? All right, excellent. So if I could get a motion to adjourn, please.
This motion to adjourn. This is Wendy.
I'll second it, Sharon.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right, we will adjourn at 7:29 this evening. Great,
Thank
thank
you,
you,
Meg.
everybody. Appreciate
night,
the
everyone.
conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks,
you.
Meg.
Thank you.
Bye.